Hey everyone, this is Bunny, and welcome to another Paint and Talk session. Today I'm working on just some random miniatures while chatting about something that's been a part of my life for decades, Dungeons and Dragons. And specifically, I want to talk about how D&D has changed over the years, and how, in many important ways, it really hasn't changed at all. So get comfortable, settle in, and let's paint and reminisce together. When I look back on the decades I've spent with Dungeons and Dragons, I find it almost surreal how much the game has changed, and yet how much of it has stayed exactly the same. When I first sat down with those little booklets that were barely more substantial than stapled pamphlets, there was no hint that this strange hobby would become something so timeless. We didn't have the cultural footprint, the mainstream attention, or the massive communities surrounding the game today. All we had were dice, imagination, and the willingness to see what happened when a group of people tried to explore a world together. In many ways, that early simplicity laid a foundation that every edition since has been building on. The earliest versions of D&D were charming in their roughness. The rules were sketchy outlines more than detailed frameworks, and every group had to decide how things actually worked at their own table. There was no standard way to play. You might look at two different groups using the same books and swear they weren't even playing the same game. That lack of consistency could be frustrating, but there was something freeing about it too. You weren't bound by someone else's interpretation. You weren't guided into how things should be done. You were encouraged, almost forced, to make the game your own. And that ethos has never fully disappeared, no matter how polished the rulebooks have become. Over time, the game grew more structured. Each new edition added layers of clarity, complexity, or sometimes both. The charts became cleaner, the rules more accessible, and the language more standardized. The books started to look like actual professional publications. But even as the game transformed into something sleek and modern, it never lost that emphasis on player decision and shared creativity. The mechanics evolved, but the spirit of invention remained. And that's something you can feel even now. That sense that no matter how well written the rules, the real magic happens in the gaps between them. One of the major shifts between early D&D and the versions that followed is really the level of support the game now provides. Back in the early days, you didn't have hundreds of supplements or digital tools or encyclopedic online resources to draw from. Information was limited, and sometimes the rule books felt like you were reading someone's notebook scribbles. That ambiguity meant that every table had a unique identity. Today, players can read lengthy guides on how to make the perfect character, how to use each ability optimally, or how to solve complex rules interactions. It's easier to learn the game, but sometimes that ease comes at the cost of the wild, messy experimentation that characterized those early years. And yet, that experimental spirit still finds its way into the game. Even now, with more clarity and structure than ever before, every table eventually encounters a moment where the rules fall silent. Maybe it's an unexpected plan, a bizarre creature interaction, or a spell used in a way no one anticipated. No matter the edition, D&D has always been at its best in those unpredictable bursts of creativity. It's a reminder that the heart of the game has always been improvisation, even when the books try to guide you toward a certain structure. Another thing that hasn't changed is the way players approach characters. Whether it was the simplest fighter in OD&D with almost no mechanical depth, or a complex build from 3.5 filled with feats and prestige classes, players have always gravitated toward the idea of stepping into someone else's skin. That desire to embody a hero, or sometimes a lovable disaster, transcends mechanics. It's part of the human instinct for storytelling. Even the most bare-bones character sheet can feel alive when players invest themselves into a journey, And even the most detailed character build can fall flat without that spark. That truth has held steady across every version of the game. As additions came and went, they brought with them evolving philosophies about what D&D should be. Some versions were deeply tactical, borrowing ideas from miniature war games. Others leaned into rules-light narrative freedom. Some aimed for balance and precision, while others embraced asymmetry and unpredictability. Every edition reflects the design sensibilities of its time, influenced by broader trends in gaming and storytelling. And yet, through all those changes, the game continued to center on a group of people telling a story together. Even when the rules shifted drastically, the purpose remained constant. There's also something to be said for how the tone of D&D has transformed over the years. Early D&D had a harsher, more survival-focused feel. Characters were fragile, the world was unforgiving, and the math did not bend in your favor. Many campaigns ended abruptly, not with sweeping epics, but with unfortunate missteps. As the game matured, it allowed for more heroic fantasy. Characters became more durable, stories more cinematic, and the overall tone more accessible. Some players miss the gritty challenge of those early days. Others love the modern heroic style. But both approaches have always existed somewhere within the game's DNA. The community surrounding D&D has also grown in ways that early players could never have imagined. When the game first emerged, players were isolated in pockets scattered across the map. Finding others who played could feel like discovering an underground society. Today, the community is massive and interconnected. People share stories, homebrew ideas, artwork, actual playthrough recordings, and character concepts with a global audience. The collective creativity of the community has become a defining aspect of the modern game, and that shared energy fuels the experience in ways early D&D simply couldn't. But even with all that growth, the table itself remains a small, intimate space. No matter how big the hobby gets, every campaign still comes down to a small group of people sharing an adventure. The outside world disappears, and you enter a space where imagination does the heavy lifting. The core experience has never changed. It's still the same thrill the early players felt. The joy of creating worlds and exploring them with friends. That's one of the reasons the game has endured so long. It scales outward culturally, but inward emotionally. One of the quiet constraints in D&D's evolution is the way the game teaches collaboration. Even early editions, with their sparse rules and mismatched ideas, encouraged players to rely on each other. You couldn't survive alone. You couldn't succeed without the rest of the party. Today's editions still emphasize teamwork, but they offer more tools to shape that experience. Abilities that synergize, spells that complement each other, subclass features that enhance the group. These elements highlight how much the game has matured. But the underlying requirement for cooperation was always there. It's simply become more richer and more intentional. Another aspect that has never truly changed is the chaos of the dice. Whether you've been playing for 2 sessions or 2 decades, dice remain the ultimate equalizer. The most meticulously crafted plan can fall apart with a single unlucky roll, and the most outrageous idea can succeed because the dice feel like being generous. Early editions leaned heavily on this randomness, while later editions introduced systems to moderate it. But no matter how many modifiers and rerolls exist, there is always a moment where you hold your breath and hope the dice land in your favor. That moment of uncertainty is timeless. Watching the way classes has evolved also provides a fascinating window into how the game changed. Early fighters were straightforward. Hit the thing. Magic users were fragile but powerful. Clerics were somewhere in between. Over time, classes gained more identity, more flavor, more complexity. Subclasses added richness. Abilities became more distinct. Players found new ways to shape their characters. Despite all the layering of opinions, every class still comes back to its fundamental fantasy. A fighter is still a warrior. A wizard still wields arcane secrets. A rogue still dances between shadows. Prestige, not complexity, gives each class its soul. One of the biggest shifts in D&D across editions has been accessibility. Early D&D often felt like something you had to work to understand. You needed patience, perseverance, and sometimes a very forgiving group. Modern D&D, especially 5e and now 2024, is designed to welcome new players. The rules are smoother, the math more forgiving. The design philosophy encourages storytelling over precision. Some long-time players prefer the challenges of earlier systems. Some newer players appreciate the ease of entry. Both perspectives are valid, and both help the game thrive. A system that can include so many playstyles has depth beyond its pages. Despite all the updates, one thing remains consistent. Rulebooks are never the final authority. They are guides, not prisons. They offer structure, but the table defines the experience. Every group adapts, tweaks, or outright ignores certain rules. Some tables run tactical combat with measured movement and detailed mapping. Others rely entirely on description and imagination. Some tables love optimization. Others prefer messy roleplay. That flexibility has been the core of the game from the beginning, and no edition has ever truly taken that away. Over the decades, D&D has become something like a cultural mirror. Each edition reflects the values, interests, and design philosophies of the time. The early editions were children of wargaming, influenced by strategy, probability, and risk. Later editions embraced narrative storytelling. The 2000s saw the rise of character optimization and mechanical depth. The modern era embraces accessibility and inclusivity. Through all of this, the game adapted without losing its identity. It morphed, shifted, reimagined itself, yet remained familiar. You can sit down at a modern table and still feel echoes of the tables from 40 years ago. There's also something profound in the way D&D encourages deep thought about possibility. When you create a character, you're not just picking numbers. You're imagining a life. You're asking yourself questions about identity, purpose, growth, and choice. Those questions exist across every edition. They never depended on the mechanics. Whether you had 3 alignment choices or 9, whether your stats were rolled or assigned, whether your abilities were simple or sprawling, you were still making decisions about who your character was. That reflective nature is one of the game's more subtle strengths. As I paint these miniatures and think back on the game that has followed me through so many phases of life, I'm struck by how D&D became a kind of constant companion. It grew as I grew. It changed as the world changed. And yet it always remained a place where creativity could flourish. That consistency is one of the reasons the game endures. It gives people the space to explore possibility, to challenge themselves, and to build something together. Whether you're playing the earliest edition or the newest, that shared exploration is the beating heart of the game. Even with all the improvements and innovations, some things that existed in early D&D still resonate today. The sense of discovery, the thrill of exploring the unknown, the camaraderie that emerges when a group faces challenges together. The laughter when things go horribly wrong. The triumph when a plan succeeds against all odds. These moments have never required elaborate mechanics. They aren't tied to specific rules. They arise naturally from the combination of imagination and chance. That's why, even as the game changes, the experience remains familiar. It's also worth acknowledging that certain complexities from earlier editions have their own charm. Not every table wants streamlined efficiency. Some enjoy the challenge of navigating intricate mechanics. Some enjoy the gratification that comes from mastering a defense system. D&D's evolving complexity reflects the broader tension between accessibility and depth. Modern editions try to strike a balance, but every player finds their own sweet spot. The key is that the game allows for all of these approaches. It's a flexible framework, not a rigid doctrine. As the game continues to evolve, I found myself appreciating the ways each edition left its mark. No edition was perfect, and no edition ever will be. But each brought something meaningful. Some introduced freedom, some introduced structure, some emphasized storytelling, and some embraced strategy. Each version added layers to the rich tapestry that is D&D's history, and all of them together form the living tradition that players inherit when they sit down at the table for the very first time. When people ask whether the newest edition is faithful to the old one, I think the answer depends on what you consider the essence of the game. If you think it's the mechanics, then you might feel that the changes are dramatic. If you think it's the math, the differences are obvious. But if you think the heart of D&D is creativity, collaboration, and the unfiltered joy of sharing storytelling, then the game is still exactly what it was. It has never stopped being the medium through which imagination meets chance and becomes adventure. Even now, as I paint and talk and reflect, I'm reminded of how the game thrives on conversation. D&D is built on the idea that people sit around a table, real or virtual, and communicate. They discuss, negotiate, imagine, and create. That element has never changed, and it's the clearest sign of the game's enduring strength. As long as people gather to share stories, D&D will remain alive, regardless of which edition happens to be on the shelf. And so, after all these years, when I hear someone refer to the game as new, or modern, or different, I smile a little. Because beneath the new covers and updated mechanics, beneath the polished art and streamlined stories, the core remains. It still is untouched. It still remains unblemished. It's still a game where you gather with friends, roll some dice, and see where the adventure takes you. It's still the same spark that lit up those early tables. It's still Dungeons and Dragons. Thank you so much for hanging out with me during this paint and talk session. I hope you'll be back with us next time. Bye!